Hello, everybody. As I've said previously, I have been asked to do a Dvar Torah every week and put it out there. So here goes. We're on Parashat Noach, and I shall do my best, Belina, there to do it. Okay, so normally we speak, when we talk about Parashat Noach, people tend to focus on Noach and the flood and the ark, etc. I'm going to focus on a different story in the same parasha, which comprises a mere 9 pesukim of the whole parasha, and this is the famous story of the Tower of Babel. In summary, we're told that a group of people decided to build a city and a tower with its top in heaven in order to, quote, make a name, end quote, for themselves, lest they be scattered across the earth. Now, for some untold reason, the building angers Hashem, and he comes down, confuses the language, and scatters them across the earth. That's the story in a nutshell. Now, the questions raised by these 9 pesukim are far more in number than the words making up the story itself. I'm not going to go into all the questions, but some of the fundamental questions should include: who are these people? What are they trying to do? What was their sin? What does confusing the language have to do with building a tower? Why do they think that if they do not make a name for themselves, they will be scattered? How does confusing their language lead to their scattering? So let's look at a few of these questions. The story starts with the statement that, quote, the whole earth was of one safa, translated as language, and devarim achadim, translated loosely as one speech or one set of words. On safa achat, on those words, Rashi says that this means they spoke Lashon HaKodesh, they spoke Hebrew, effectively. Now, this bugged me immediately. How does this make sense? In just the previous Perek, we are told that the people were scattered according to their families, their lands, and their languages. The word there used is lashon for language, which is a much more commonly used word in Torah for language. In fact, the only other place I know in which the word safa is used in relation to language is when Moshe Rabbeinu tells Hashem that he is of uncircumcised lips, and it uses the word sefatayim, i.e., lips. Now, normally the word lashon is used for language, as I said. So, what does safa mean in the singular? And what does devarim achadim mean? What does that mean? We translated it before as one with speech. What does that mean? I would suggest that the use of the word safa in the singular as opposed to sefatayim, meaning lips, is to denote that they were in fact of one lip, i.e., their lips were sealed. They did not speak unless it was from the same set of words. As we would say in modern usage, they all sang from the same hymn sheet, so to speak. So the story tells us that as they traveled from Kedim, which could also mean from the past, into a new era, they found a plain on which they settled. Then they decided to build this city and tower. The commentaries go bonkers over all the different reasons that they had for building the city and tower. Some say it was an act of rebellion against Hashem. Others say they wanted to hold up the heavens to avoid another flood. They were scared. One even says that they were trying to build some kind of escape hatch in which to escape of another flood, should there be another one, God forbid. The main problem with all of these is that if one is trying to get to heaven for any of those reasons, one would start building from the top of a mountain, not a plain or a valley. You'd give yourself a few thousand feet head start, wouldn't you? You'd start at the top of a mountain or from higher land. Why start from the bottom of a valley if you're trying to get to heaven? So that doesn't seem to make much sense. Moreover, if any of those reasons would apply, why was God so angry? And why did he find it necessary to, so to speak, come down and see their work? Even if they wanted to wage war with Hashem, it's a ridiculous proposition. They were never going to get to heaven, so why give their endeavor any hint of seriousness or legitimacy by checking it out, so to speak? Why did Hashem give it any legitimacy? Moreover, they themselves knew the tower was never really going to get anywhere. They weren't going to get to heaven. They didn't have the technology to build a skyscraper as we do today, whose base is as wide as its top. The taller they went, the base would have to be that much wider to support such a structure. So effectively, the higher they're built, the more they were scattered. It's a self-defeating exercise, right? In order to build that high, you'd have to have a very, very wide base, and therefore you'd be scattering yourself before you even start. So what were they even doing? The Netziv says that they were trying to build a capital city with what would effectively be a watchtower to watch surrounding towns and areas. When we are told that Hashem confused their language, the Midrash says that one would ask for a hammer and would get a chisel. He'd be so enraged that he'd kill the other. Now, is this a normal reaction? Surely, if I ask someone for a hammer and they pass me a chisel because they don't understand what I'm saying, the obvious reaction is to shake my head and gesture my meaning, right? I'd say no with my head, and I'd gesture that actually I want a hammer. I'd make signs with my hands of what I require. None of us, I hope, would end up killing the other for not understanding. It sounds like a ridiculous thing. So what does this mean? It means that anyone who spoke differently in inverted commas, i.e., deviated from the party line, was whacked in the head. At first, the terms Safa Achat and Devarim Achadim sound wonderfully united. They all spoke the same language and read off the same page, as we would say today. It's no accident that in a book overloaded with people's names, these 9 Pesukim are surprisingly void of characters. They were all one unit. There are no names mentioned. In fact, it means that if you did not speak my language, if you were not completely one with us, then you are dangerous and worthy of elimination. There was only one way to think, and the city and the tower were meant to contain exactly that. Anyone who sought to leave that city would be killed. This is what angered Hashem. It says that he came down to see what Bnei Ha'adam had built. Not Bnei Adam, but Bnei Ha'adam, the sons of the original Adam. That very same man he had given the gift of free will to, the spark of the divine. They were now seeking to subvert that individual free will in order to create a monolithic society. That's the thing. My husband came up with a wonderful chidush. He said that the gematria of Lashon is 386, whilst the gematria of Safa is 385. The only thing that was missing from their speech was Hashem, was the one, the spark of the divine, the purpose of the divine in us, the godliness. It is Abraham Avinu who comes along and smashes this ideology, who thinks for himself and exercises his free will accordingly. We tend to think of the story of Babel as the appendix to the Noach story. In fact, I think it's the preface to the Abraham story, and its message is as follows: Lech lecha, go for yourself, think for yourself, and be who you need to be. So we'll follow in next week, please God. Shabbat shalom.